Hi everyone, and welcome to my first ever book haul on this channel. I have been holding off on doing one of these, frankly, because I get an embarrassing amount of books when I do finally do a book haul, so I'm not gonna apologize. Instead, I want you to feel better about knowing that every single one of these books was on sale. When the holiday sales come every year, I tend to go all out and I tend to buy all the books that I've been waiting to buy forever. So I have a lot of really good ones here I'm really excited to share. But you should know, in case you're wondering, I go to all of the bookstores. That means that I do go online to Amazon. I do get books from Audible. I do buy books at my local bookstore, at my library bookstore. I also buy books at Barnes & Noble, and I buy books from the Half Price Bookshop down the road. So this is an embarrassing amount of books. So let's get into it here. These are the books that are from both the library and one of my local bookstores. You're gonna have to forgive me because you'll see that some of these books have the shiny cover still on them, but that's how I buy them. So this is a book, Transgalactic by James Gunn, that I picked up on cold at the library book sale, obviously. One of the things that interested me about it was a rather short book, and the top of the cover here says that James Gunn is a grand master of science fiction. I have never heard of his name before, and I don't know anything about how he writes, so this sounds really interesting to me. Apparently he was a Hugo winner, and this book just sounded and looked interesting, and I'm always looking for new, shorter science fiction books that I've never heard of before. The next one that I got is a title that I've been keeping my eye out for, and that is a old, very well used Alastair Reynolds Chasm City book. This is, you can see, kind of like poorly kept, but definitely still a library book. And I'm really excited to pick this one up because I got it for cheap, and this is a title of all Alastair Reynolds stuff that I have been looking the most forward to, so I'm glad I finally got a hold of a copy of it. Another book that I have been seeing every time I go to the bookstore. I find this book, I feel like every time I go to a used bookstore, and I pick it up and then I inevitably put it back down because I find a book that I'm more interested in buying, and I finally found a book that is a little bit bigger. And for those of you who don't know, I really enjoy bigger books that fit in my hands. I really don't like those mass market paperbacks. And this book, called Prospero's Children, was written by Jan Siegel, something like that. It was obviously a half-price book find, and I really enjoy the size of this book. I have continually had my eye on this book for a long while, so I finally decided to pick this one up. It is supposed to be a dark mermaid story, and I'm kind of intrigued. One that was at the used bookstore. This one I got because it was in spectacular condition. This one is called The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell, and as you can see, it's kind of got some shine to it here. It's also a bigger book, and it's in great condition. I've heard a whole lot about this book from other booktubers, and I've heard not one give a negative review. It's supposed to be a version of an Arthurian tale, you know, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So I'm really interested in checking this out as a historical fantasy type novel. And sometimes you just need those outside the box books. So I just went ahead and decided to pick this one up. Then I picked up a book that looks very well loved, but had a very intriguing cover, and that one is called Lexicon by Max Barry. I don't know if you can see how cool that eye is, but you can see it looks like an eye that fades into letters, and right on that pupil there it says, "Words are weapons." And Max Barry is a science fiction author. I've heard his name but never read anything by him. And this book is supposed to be about words having power. And somewhere in North America, there is an entire city destroyed by an accidental discovery of a word, which I guess qualifies as science fantasy, but sounds like an interesting cover. Sounds like an interesting book and has an interesting cover, so I picked it up. Then I picked up some definite oldies, but they look like goodies. This one is called There Will Be Time by Paul Anderson. You can tell it's definitely that smaller size that I don't really enjoy, but a lot of these books don't come as bigger books, so you have to buy what you can get, right? I've heard a whole lot about Paul Anderson, and this is the first book that I have encountered by him that looked really interesting. Looks like some kind of time travel book, so I went ahead and got it. So the next one is Night Watch. This one is by Andrew M. Stevenson. This is not an author I've ever heard of before, but this is obviously a classic sci-fi pulp book. It looks really interesting and fun. It has blue pages. You can see that that looks kind of cool. I thought the cover looked interesting. The back of the book looked interesting, so I went ahead and decided to pick it up. Then I got Quazzle. Not really sure how to say that, by Alan Dean Foster. This book just looks like a funny book. And for those of you who haven't already figured it out, I'm a big sucker for parody books. So I really liked that this book was apparently an alien first contact, but from the aliens' perspective. And the aliens are trying to figure out who we are based off of what they find in our homes, which sounds like an interesting book, looks kind of parody, satirical type, and so I had to pick it up. Then I have my stack of books from the newer bookstores. These are books that I all got on sale that I have been really anticipating getting from somewhere. The first is a book that might surprise you, and that is A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. This is the book that won the Hugo Award this year, and I have read this book already. I think I listened to it on audiobook or I got it from the library. I honestly don't remember which. What I can tell you is that I own the first in this series, A Memory Called Empire, and I wanted to complete the set, the duology. Even though this wasn't my Hugo Award winning pick, I still loved it and I wanted to own it, so I got it on sale. Then I picked up a book that I've been really excited to read, and that is Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is my only ever second Heinlein book, and I have already started it because I was so excited about picking this one up. I'm sure that there's a review to come soon on this one, but I'm really excited to own it, and I will be finishing that book rather soon. Then I picked up a book called Vita Nostra. This is by a husband-wife team, Marina and Sergei Dyachenko. Not really sure how to say it. This is a Ukrainian fantasy book. I actually already listened to this book through my library. However, I loved this book so much that I decided to go ahead and buy it. And I loved it again so much that I picked up a second book by them that's supposed to be a standalone called Daughter from the Dark. So I will definitely have to talk a little bit more about these later. You will be hearing from me. Then I picked up, to no surprise at all, the second and third book in the Three Body Problem series, The Dark Forest, which is the second book, and Death's End. I have been planning to read The Dark Forest all year long and just kept waiting to be able to buy this book because I had a different book in mind or because I didn't really own it, and I decided that enough excuses. I need to buy it so that way I read it and get through these because I am really excited to read it. I did really enjoy the Three Body Problem, so I do have these books now and I will be making my way through them, finally. And the last big new book that I bought was a Tor Essential, The Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner. First of all, I have to say I love the size of this book. I really tend to love these Tor Essential books. They always feel so pretty and the art is so interesting for me. I also really enjoy the font that they used inside the book. That is something that I care about. So I recently discovered John Brunner's works and have been really interested in getting a lot more of his stuff. So I went ahead and picked this one up. And now we get on finally to my last pile. These are from my specialty bookshops that we have in the area that I live. So I apologize to you. Some of these are new and some of these are used or well loved. So the first book I picked up was Absinthe. This, I believe, is a new book that is out. Brendan Bellecourt wrote it. I believe that this is a science fantasy book, but I'm not 100% sure. They have on the back of the book that this is Inception meets Metropolis by way of The Great Gatsby. I love me some 1920s, And if you're gonna tell me that you combined Inception with Metropolis, I'm going to see if that's real or not. This book sounds really interesting to me, so I'm definitely going to prioritize this book sometime in the next couple of months. So we'll see how it holds up to that description. Then I picked up the book Mort or Morty. I'm not really sure how to say this. This cover is really interesting, and what grabbed me was the E in the parentheses and the fact that it has a cat on it. Really an interesting idea here. And I guess this is a satirical book, so already, again, I'm more intrigued. And this book is about, I guess it's told from a cat's perspective, about how the ants are invading and taking over the human world. And so the cats, which are intelligent, have to prevent this hostile takeover from the ant colony. But it sounds really fun, and I'm always down for more fun. Then I picked up an oldie but a goodie. This book is Roadside Picnic by the Strugatsky brothers. In case you don't know or have never heard of this book, this is a very famous science fiction Russian novel that my friend Matt from Bookpilled told me that if I didn't like, we were enemies forever. So I obviously have to pick up this book. It's one of the few books that he's ever given a 5-star rating to, which almost doesn't happen on his channel. And I was really excited to check this book out. So Matt, we're gonna find out soon. Then I picked up, I believe this is considered a novella. It's called Your Sins and Mine by Taylor Caldwell. This book is very short, and it's supposed to be a dystopian, maybe they call it a feminist dystopian. I really don't know much more about it other than it's very short and it inspires a lot of discussion. So I picked it up. Then I picked up another novella just because the front cover looks kind of awesome. Sisters of the Vast Black. This is supposed to be kind of like a religion sci-fi combination, and it is a standalone. I did look that up to make sure I wasn't missing something or getting it in the middle of a series, and I don't know anything more about it other than the cover looks pretty and it looks like a book I might like. This one is kind of a guilty pleasure read for me. This is a John Scalzi novella called Unlocked. This book goes with his Locked In series. He invented a disease that caused a pandemic around the world, and he had Locked In and Head On, and then he came out with this little novella where a lot of my sci-fi friends really said that this novella was really well done, and it's all about the disease process. And since I'm in the healthcare field, I figure I had better get this and check it out and see if John Scalzi did his research. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. I'm not really that harsh of a judge, but we'll find out. I wanted to pick up a John Wyndham book. I've heard a whole lot about John Wyndham, especially that John Wyndham inspired the writers of the awesome zombie film 28 Days Later with a book of his called Day of the Triffids. And this book is not a zombie book. Interestingly, it's like a plant takeover. That sounds really intriguing, and I really love the movie 28 Days Later, so I had to pick this book up. But when I got to the John Wyndham section, I was reading a lot of the backs of the covers, and I ended up finding another book that interested me just a little bit more, and that book was Trouble with the Lichen. I don't know if you can see that book cover. Looks kind of interesting. And apparently in this book, lichen are the fountain of youth. And I think that's why she has a gunshot wound here. I don't really know a whole lot more about this book, but it sounds really interesting and intriguing. It sounds like John Wyndham has a thing with fungus and plants and such. And I couldn't decide which one at the bookstore, so I just picked them both up because I have no self-control. Then I have had a lot of discussion with my friend Jonathan from Words in Time and several of the other Science Alliance members, Science Fiction Alliance members, I should say. And a lot of discussion has been around Clifford Simak. I've been really waiting to read one of his books, and I happened to find this one in the bookstore. It's rather short again, and it's called The Goblin Reservation. The back of the book is really intriguing, so I couldn't put this down. It says, an interstellar adventure of aliens, fairies, and time travel. So, need I say more? I just had to pick it up. Then I picked up, I don't even know if this is science fiction or fantasy, but this book is called D, The Tale of Two Worlds. And this book says that the letter D suddenly starts disappearing from the English language, and this causes all kinds of mayhem. And it is based loosely off of A Tale of Two Cities. So it is by Michael Faber. I don't know anything about him other than I recognize his name. I decided to go ahead and pick this one up, try it out, see what I thought. And the last book here on this list is gonna be The Cabinet by Eun-Soo Kim. This is a South Korean science fiction fantasy book. I really don't know a whole lot about it other than the front cover looks interesting. I'm always interested in finding books from other countries, and this book is about a magical cabinet that has interstellar properties. Again, I don't know a whole lot more about it, but it does look really fascinating and particularly interesting. And since I'm looking to broaden my horizons, I have to check it out. And I think that does it for my epic, embarrassing book haul. Oh, wait, I almost forgot my Audible book haul because I don't physically have a copy of those books. I'm so sorry. So quickly running through those, I found a book called Quietus by Tristan Palmgren. This book is supposed to be an in-depth look at the difference between individuality and where we have a place in the universe. So it sounds like an interesting question. I will have to check that one out. I also got Invictus by Ryan Groden. This is supposed to be a YA sci-fi novel, and I'm always interested in checking those out because you don't see them very often. And this is supposed to be ancient Romans, time travel, and space. I don't really know how that's gonna mix together, but I'm interested in seeing. And you know, for the low prices that were recommended on Audible, I had to check it out. Time's Eye, which is co-written by Stephen Baxter and Arthur C. Clarke. And I'm already a huge fan of Arthur C. Clarke, but I've never read anything by Stephen Baxter. And since they went in together, I figured I would give this book a try. I honestly know nothing about it. So I have high expectations. We'll see what happens. Then I finally picked up The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. So I am a John Scalzi fan, although I've heard a lot of people say that there was just a little bit of disappointment with this book and that it was just like a fun book rather than something that was a little bit more intriguing or interesting. I'm fine with that. I'm always good for a, palate cleansing novel, and again, low prices on sale, why not? So I'm gonna pick this book up here soon. I also got Against All Odds by Jeffrey Haskell. This book looks like a fun space opera that again looks probably like a palate cleanser. So we'll see what it does, but it has popped up quite a bit on my library and my Audible accounts. So we'll see if I like it. We'll see how the AI did recommending this book to me. Then I picked up Rosewater by Tade Thompson. One of my old college roommates and I were gonna read this as a buddy read a little bit later in the year, so I figured, hey, I might as well pick this up since it's on sale already. Then I surprisingly found Starfish by Peter Watts. I was so surprised that this book was on sale that I immediately added it to my list. I mean, Peter Watts is kind of an auto-buy author for me, especially after his work with Blindsight, and I can't wait to see what Starfish, which is a standalone book for him, has to offer, especially since I think he has some kind of marine or biology background. And this book is supposed to take place underwater, which is gonna be really interesting. So I can't wait to pick this one up. Then I bought the only fantasy on my list this time, for Audible of course, and that is Mageborn by Stephen Orion. It looks like this is the beginning of a series, and they didn't have a whole lot of beginning of series books on sale. A lot of the sale had second or third books, so I wanted to give Steve Orion a chance, and every now and then I need a little bit less space and a little more magic. So when I'm ready for that or when I'm in the mood, this will be a book that I try out. And that actually does it for my giant book haul. Please let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these or if you have a particular one in which I should start with. And don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the Science Alliance with the links down in the description below. See you next time.